We begin with new developments in the 11-month controversy surrounding the Hope Florida Foundation. Governor Ron DeSantis is declaring victory amidst the probe targeting the social services organization that was led by his wife, Casey DeSantis. His administration is citing an anonymous source in the U.S. Justice Department, claiming that federal charges will not be filed. Questions still remain, and a criminal grand jury investigation does continue. Take a look. Hope Florida is a state initiative launched under Governor Ron DeSantis and championed by First Lady Casey DeSantis. It's designed to connect Floridians in need with faith-based and community services instead of traditional government assistance programs. The program came under scrutiny after millions of dollars from a state Medicaid settlement were routed through the Hope Florida Foundation to political activities that critics claim may have ultimately supported the governor's agenda and his allies. The trail of payments were laid out in financial records and documents obtained by the Tampa Bay Times and the Miami Herald in April of last year. Now Governor DeSantis says the case is effectively closed, citing an anonymous source within the U.S. Department of Justice who spoke to the Floridian press. The source told the online publication, quote, "No further action is anticipated on the matter," end quote. Governor DeSantis took to X, calling the probe a hoax manufactured by Florida rhinos and leftist media. Rhino is an acronym that stands for Republican in name only. The Justice Department has yet to comment on the governor's claim or the story in the Floridian press. Meanwhile, questions remain from state lawmakers from both parties and watchdogs about how the money moved, who approved it, and whether laws governing public funds were followed. The probe is also still under investigation by a criminal grand jury who has yet to conclude its deliberations. And Mike, I'd like to start with you. So many folks are talking about this story in Tallahassee. Typically, an anonymous source in a newspaper story does not have this effect. But when the governor includes it in a post on his social media account, then it becomes big news. How do you see all of this? What are people saying?
Well, I mean, as a representative of the news outlet that has spent months looking into this, our Tallahassee Bureau has done fantastic work, spending quite a bit of resources getting to the bottom of this, and it's not nothing. There is something there. I was struck by the article. It was written by a political consultant. It was an anonymous source in the U.S. Department of Justice, basically a blind quote saying that there was no federal investigation. We have never reported that there was a federal investigation. We haven't confirmed that there is one. So that just seemed to be unrelated to what we've been reporting. What we've been reporting is that there is a state investigation. A grand jury has taken a look into this situation. We don't know the status, so I'm not predicting the future. I'm not saying that there will be an indictment, but it does seem to be ongoing. The state attorney would not comment. So for the governor to come out based on an anonymous source to declare that it's all a hoax seems at this moment to be incredibly premature. And
what are the documents that you all have asked for? Many documents. You were able to look at emails, you were able to look at discussions with the attorneys that were involved, with Centene and the state representatives. There's quite a bit of information that the investigators are going through.
Quite a bit, and we don't know what they're going to determine, so who knows, but what we've been able to report is, up to $35 million of state money has been redirected to political campaigns. That's not, I'm not to determine if that's legal or not, but there's a lot of people who will be making that determination.
Jeff, as a former state senator, I mean, there are so many aspects to this story that as a legislator you would be looking at. One of the things that we have been asked by our viewers is, why isn't more attention being paid to the fact that here you have the largest manager of Medicaid in the state of Florida admitting that they overbilled taxpayers on medications by $67 million was just the settlement here in Florida. There are so many aspects of that raise more questions of how much more is being done behind the scenes with Medicaid that we don't know about?
Oh, I think there's fraud, waste, and abuse everywhere in the system, and I think people see that all the time. Whether it's what's going on in Minnesota with hospice care or child care, or even in the state where we're settling claims for Medicaid fraud. I think there's all kinds of issues. But I think to go back to something Michael talked about, listen, the governor spent the last year being dragged through the mud by the Florida legislature, and just because there is not criminal charges doesn't mean that the legislature found that activity was appropriate. I don't think anybody thinks that it was appropriate to misuse funds like that. And whether it's illegal, it's definitely a misuse of funds, and I think that's what the legislature called out, and I think the legislature is trying to do things this year to make sure that never happens again.
Is there a group in particular that we as voters can rely on to make sure that things that should be investigated are?
Well, I think that's the role of the media. It's the role of the legislature to hold people accountable in the various branches of government. I think that's why we have this balance of power in Florida and frankly throughout the United States. But it's the role of the legislature to do these deep dives, to do these investigations, and to ask the tough questions. And it's often at the prompting of the media that the legislature gets the information to make those changes.